Alright, so for this next part, what I'm going to do is complete the button that I left pending on the last video. So I'm going to take a look at what I have right now. So all of these are separated pieces of shells for the single button that I have over here. Now, let's see, what I want to do here is separate this edge because I know it's not going to be able to connect. So I'm going to go here and I will go down here to my cut. And now I will select this edge and I'm going to stitch it together. So here, and the next cut is, let's try to find that, it's gonna be over here. So I'm gonna stitch that together as well. Now as I did that, the whole thing is gonna go around. Actually no, if I select this one as well, stitch together, the whole thing is gonna go all the way around. And what I mentioned in the previous video, that is not entirely right. Rather, this cut is here, so I need to cut that one in as well. What I want to try to do is hide the seam as much as possible. Here in the top might be noticeable if I'm standing over here. Of course, in a solid color is not going to be that big of a deal, but it might be in some other models. So let's just try to keep things consistent. I'm going to merge it out, see that it's going to change the color of the whole shape. And I'm going to select this edge down here. Actually, let's go with this one, and I'm going to cut it. Once I do that, when I select this shell and I unfold it, that is going to be a single shell and everything is going to be fine. The cut is going to be hidden all the way down here. I'm going to try to do the same thing with this one. So what I'm going to do is select this edge, now that I show you the whole process, and double click on this one. As this is a radial situation, it's going to go all the way around. What I can do is just do that double click. So I'm gonna stitch it together and I'm going to hide, or actually I'm gonna create the seam in the same place that I had before. So this one is going to be a cut. I'll select this shell, and when I unfold it, that is going to be this round shape that is going like this. Now this one was flat, this one was round, and the reason is Maya is going to do its best to try to flatten it out. But there's no way to flatten a circle, right? So it is just basically going to try to alleviate the cuts as much as possible. This is another example. This is completely flat and like the shape came in a really good condition. Let's go with the next one. So I'm gonna go with my edge, and then so double shift on my edge, and then I'm gonna say stitch together, and I will select this other edge and I'm going to cut it. So once that I cut it, I'm going to select that UV shell here and I'm going to unfold it. So see, it's a matter of selecting a couple faces, you know, and setting up where my subdivision of my cuts are going to be. Now the next thing is I'm going to select this one and this one here. Going to also select this one. I'm going to make 3 rings just for proofing, and this is going to be cut. But now what I'm going to do with this edge, this edge here is selected, double click on that one, that is going to go all the way around, and I'm going to stitch it together. Then I'm going to find the place that I've been doing my cuts, which is down here, and I will say cut. Now with that, I'm gonna go my way of the shell and I'm going to hit unfold. This is going to be coming in this way, and this one here in the back, I'm gonna hit unfold. It's a circle already, so there's nothing to do. And then this one unfold, just make it flatten if it hadn't happened yet. So these are all of the pieces that I have had created. And this one here is going to go around this mesh, which is going around this one. So I'm just gonna try to align them in such a way that it makes sense, right? So I have that one. This is the front of the bottom. Let me see. It doesn't fit here in the front, so unfortunately I cannot put it in there. This is going to be the whole ring going around. Did I unfold it? I did not. Which one is it? Let me just. I'll check. Oh, it's the one behind. It's the part behind the button, so that should stay there. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do with these ones here is gonna be a special case because if I select this UV shell, this one is flat. and these are all the individual faces that are connected there. So I can do something like click and then double click on the next one. That's going to go all the way around, and I want to cut them. That's counterintuitive, but bear with me for a second and I'll explain what's going on in a minute. I'm going to select this one and then do the next one. Kind of tricky to select these two, and I'm going to hit cut. Now that I have all of those cuts, I'm going to go double click this edge, and stitch together. So that is going to give me the shell, which I can unfold and I can focus on. Take a look at what it shows. So it's going to be those individual cuts. That's okay though, because for this border I have to create those relief cuts. This is what we know these cuts as. They're called relief cuts. That is going to let me create a shape that is sort of connected in here. Now if I wanted to reduce this even further, like in the poly count, I can do something like select this edge, and then I can say stitch together, and that is going to create a sort of T shape, if you will, like this. So this may or may not be a good idea. It really depends on how many cuts your shape have, or if you have a poly count or a shell count limit on how many shapes you have. This connection is maybe not that necessary, but I mean, depending on the conditions that you may have on your shell, might be important. So just letting you know, that's a heads up, that's something that can happen. So I have all of these now. This whole thing is the bottom. This is my left part, this is my right part. Now what I want to do is align all of these shapes. So I'm going to select these shells and I'm going to go down and say layout. When I do that, that is going to position them over here on top of these ones. Now they are all over the place. All of them have a different layout. And if I select them, I'm actually gonna go do an incremental save right now. Save, incremental save. When I do that and I do the layout, all of them are going to be sort of in the same place. But notice these guys here are taking a lot of space. And these three, these two and this one, alongside with the bottom ones, are the ones that are gonna be receiving the most attention. So there's two train of thoughts here. One, you keep everything on the same space, or you give more texture space to the ones that you the ones that are going to be more important. And let me demonstrate what this means. So let's imagine that the one on the top is going to be more important than the one on the bottom. They are right now even. The size is exactly the same. One of them is facing the other way and whatnot, but they have the same texture space. But let's say that this one on top is the most important one. If I make it smaller, notice that it's using less space on the texture, and then these numbers are getting a little bit blurry. So if I select the shell, I'm gonna try to position it where my 5 is. Notice how awful that 5 looks like, and that is because it's only using this square to fix this whole volume. Now on the other hand, and I'm gonna move it out of the way here to use a different space, if I scale it up all the way, keep on going, notice how much information in pixels from the texture I can fit into this space. So depending on your geometry, you may want to have some of these faces being larger than the other ones. Again, those are the two main train of thoughts here. One of them is, no, you should have all of your textures laid out and occupying the same space. For me though, I feel like if a texture is, or if a particular piece is going to require more information than the rest, like it's more important, that's what I'm trying to say, then it's going to be using less space on the texture. For instance, here in the Pokeballs, as you can see, all of them are white underneath. There's really not a lot of details going on in here. For the vast majority of them, that is. In the case of the Pokeball, they're equal. In the case of the Ultra Ball, though, for instance, they have like this sort of H on the top, but the bottom part is white. So this is where you start to, you need to start thinking about what are going to be the other models that you're going to be using your textures with. If I'm not going to be doing any sort of crazy details like in the Fastball continuing here, the quick ball, then probably I want to have the white part occupying a little less space than the one on the top. But if I'm going to be using something like this sort of pattern here, 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 or even this one, then I might need to give it exactly the same amount of space. But one thing is for sure though, these spaces here, or these shapes, are not that well distributed. Maya did a great job trying to level everything up, but they are not entirely using the least amount of space possible. So what I'm going to do in this particular case here is, on the next video, going to align all of the textures in such a way that I try to use less space than the one that I have right now. So I'll continue the video in a second.